Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Static Echoes. I'm your host, Gary Anderson, and tonight we have a very special interview with a man who we will name Barry. Barry is a truck driver who has worked the routes that go all the way through a very special place, a very spooky place here in Australia, specifically in New South Wales, and that place is known as the Pilliga. Now, for anybody who is interested in the paranormal and all those strange and weird things that we all love, and I'm assuming anybody who is listening to this podcast is interested in that, you will know, especially people in Australia, that the Pilliga is very well known for its high strangeness. Now, Barry has done daily trips throughout this place and all around this place. It's a fairly big area, and some of the things he has witnessed and experienced are truly shocking and nerve-tingling. So if you are interested to hear what Barry has to say about the Pilliga, stay tuned. Okay, so we have Barry with us now for privacy reasons and things like that. We're just going to stick with Barry tonight. We're not going to go any further than that. But I spoke with Barry the other night, and he started to tell me some of his experiences out in that Pilliga region, and I was blown away. And I actually said to him, let's just record this rather than continue the conversation. So, Barry, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, Gary. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm eager to pick up where actually not pick up where we left off, but go back to the start so everybody else can hear what you have to say. And then I'm here. Okay. I'm super happy to hear where it goes from there. So I will leave it to you to introduce yourself and take it away, mate.
Okay. So my name's Barry, 54 at the moment. 55 this year. So in October, actually. So born in 1970. As a young fella, I didn't know my real dad. He left just after I was 2. But I mainly grew up with my granddad. So he was a truck driver, diesel mechanic. So I grew up as a kid always wanting to be a truck driver.
Yeah.
And then my stepdad at the time didn't have that much of a good home life. I won't go into that. But, very rare that I would sit out and sort of watch TV in the lounge room. We only had the one TV. But I remember somewhere around, it must have been 1982 or something. I must have been around 12. And I remember seeing a documentary come up on TV. They were talking about the abominable snowman.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I ever remembered hearing about any type of creature that existed like that. But I never gave it much thought at the time.
Yeah.
To sort of go forward from there, I left school in 1986 in year 10. I started out doing an apprenticeship that I wasn't overly happy on doing. And then at 19, nearly 20, I joined the New South Wales Fire Brigade, which is now known as Fire Rescue New South Wales.
Yeah.
And I was in there for about 4.5 years. And that part of it will come into play into my story a little bit later, along with the fact that I still wanted to go and be a truck driver. And in that time whilst I was in the fire brigade, I was driving smaller trucks around the Sydney area and didn't want to rush into interstate and being in a semi-trailer and stuff. I wanted to gain experience in smaller trucks, tying loads, load restraint, all that sort of thing. So I then took on a job for about 2-3 years, which was a tow truck driver driving a tilt tray. And it was just a smash repairs. He had a Ford F-150, and he had a tilt tray, which I drove, and we had the contract for the police, what they call the police roster tows, which meant that any car from a crime scene of any description, a fatal accident or whatever, I would be the one to get called out to tow that car back to a police holding yard. So that will come into play later as well. So anyway, sort of go forward from there. And 1997, I had started stepping up into bigger trucks, and I started doing some longer distance runs and mainly like Canberra, south of Sydney, Newcastle, to the north, out to Bathurst. 97, had a workplace accident, broke my back, spent 3 years in rehab, didn't think I'd drive trucks again. So I thought, what's my other passion? Well, that was photography. So I spent a couple of years learning photography and did a course in applied science of a diploma course, applied science of photography. And back then, the cameras back then, digital didn't come out till 2000. It was around this time. Everything was still a film camera. So you had to understand shutter, aperture, ISO, white balance, and apply those settings to the camera. Otherwise, you'd wasted $30 on a roll of film and printing.
Yes.
To get your photos back, unlike today, where we're so spoiled.
That's it.
So anyway, I was doing that, but I'm sort of, I've moved out to Newcastle and have my own house there. And I was, what would it have been, 31? So 2001. Just the itch got the better of me. I had gotten to a point in my rehab with my spinal injury that although I still live with pain, I really wanted to be out on the road driving trucks interstate. So that's what I went and did. And I got a job with the original company where I had the accident because it wasn't my fault. It was somebody else that caused the accident. So off I went on interstate, travelling Victoria, down to up to Brisbane, across to Adelaide, everywhere in between, up to Townsville. And I absolutely loved it, you know, like especially the fact that I would be way out west, nobody around, by myself, pulled over on the side of the road, no city lights, staring up at the night sky, just amazed how pitch black it was. That there's a million stars to look at. And I get the camera out and take photos. And so I never felt any type of fear, no matter where I traveled. Ever. Yeah. Now, I remember, like, of course, my phone back then, it was just a basic Nokia phone. You could make a phone call, send a text. I didn't get my first computer and access to the internet till I was 30, 2000. And I pretty much just used that for Flight Simulator because I also had wanted to start training for my private pilot's license. So I was using the Flight Simulator tool on the computer, but I would study photography. So where I'm sort of going with that is, here I am at the age of 30, and I still never knew that even Bigfoot existed, let alone a Yowie. When I would be out on the road, because I had still lived with back pain, I like to travel by myself, even though, like, your logbook allows you to, say, drive for 5 hours, then you've got to have a half-hour break. You can drive for another 5 hours and have a half-hour break. And I would be in a bit of pain. Sometimes I like to drive for 2 or 3 hours and then just have a 15-minute break to walk around the truck.
Yeah.
So when you travel with other people, they wanted to drive the whole 5 hours, stop, another 5 hours, and I didn't want to hold them up, so I would just travel by myself. And I'd just listen to the radio out west, things like that. If I had no radio reception, put a CD on.
As you used to do.
And so, so I had started travelling between Brisbane, Melbourne direct. So instead of loading out of Brisbane for Sydney, it'd be a full load for Melbourne or Adelaide or vice versa coming up. And because we didn't have all the bypasses along the coast road we've got now, it was just way easier just to go out west through Narrabri, across the Pilliga, through Coonabarabran, down that way. So I had travelled through the Pilliga quite a few times and didn't think much of it, didn't know about what was happening there. And then there was 2005, there was this one night where I normally, if I was heading north, I would push through the Pilliga and I would get to the northern end of the Pilliga and I would stop at the Shell at Narrabri, there's a big truck stop there. If I was heading south, I didn't worry about turning in there. I just kept going, and I would go down to Gilgandra usually. So there was this one night, just kept going. I'm out along the Pilliga. I've pulled up into a rest area in the truck, and I've gotten out of the truck just like any other night. Gotten out of the truck, not a fear in the world. Look at how dark it is, looking up at the stars. And I goes around the passenger side of the truck because I needed to water the plants, so to speak. And I lit my cigarette, and I've done my thing. And then I finished, and I'm standing there, and I'm having my cigarette, looking up the stars. And then all of a sudden, a couple of minutes later, I started to feeling like I was being watched. And that feeling went from a feeling of being watched. And I'm looking around going, well, I'm the only person in this parking bay. And I can't see anyone. I know it's pitch black, but I can't see anyone. Like, well, I've got a feeling someone's watching me. But that feeling of being watched, the hair come up on the back of my neck, and it started to turn into a fear of a bit of dread, like the fear started to escalate to the point where I don't feel comfortable here. I'm going to get out of here. And as I started to walk down the passenger side of the truck and got to the front of the truck to the bull bar, the fear intensified, something horrendous, to where I ran to get in that truck. And I've heard people talk about it since, but I had no control over my legs. I was shaking in fear, like I was being chased. And I had no explanation for it. And there was no one around. I couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so you never saw anything, and there was nothing at all that could give you that kind of sense of fear.
I didn't hear anything.
Yeah.
You would think if something was chasing you, would hear it. I heard nothing. I just had a fear. And I remember I bashed my knees and shins trying to get up those steps because I couldn't get my legs to get me up the steps. I was going that quick. And I got in the truck. I had trouble getting in the gear, and I took off out of there, shaking in fear. And I got to Coonabarabra, and I was still shaking. And I couldn't understand why. I'd never experienced that in any other part of Australia.
So just for everybody who doesn't know, how far is it, or how long does it take to get from where this happened to that place that I can't pronounce it, that place you just said?
Coonabarabra.
Yeah.
So when you leave Narrabri, you head along the Pilliga Strait, and it goes to Coonabarabra, and it's about an hour 20.
And you were
sitting at 100 k's an hour.
And you were still shaking after an hour at 100 k's an hour.
Yeah, no. So where I had stopped was probably closer to Coonabarabra than it was Narrabri. I would guess. I remember where the truck parking bay was. It might have been a third of the way across, so a bit over halfway. Probably 35 minutes out of Coonabarabra and something like that.
That's still a long time to have that kind of.
I couldn't, like, the fear had come, but I was still on edge. Like I was still, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
And then
probably adrenaline.
I've come into Coonabarabra, and the thing that I kick myself to this day is that when you came into Coonabarabra heading south, on your left-hand side, there was an old service station that was a truck stop. It was only small. You've always trucks parked there. Now, later on into the story, that'll become relevant as well. But I'd never stopped there. And I think it was just because there was always a few trucks out the front. It looked like there wasn't enough room to pull up. I'll just keep going. And I would get down to, you had a choice of a shell on your right-hand side, or like as you came into Gilgandra, and then in Gilgandra itself, you had a Caltex ampole. And I would like to stop there. So anyway, I had never stopped, and sadly that had been knocked down a long time ago, that service station in Coonabarabra.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's like 2005. It had only been 6 months before that I started dating my partner, and I never told her because I didn't want her to think I was crazy.
Yeah.
So I said nothing to her, and I had spoken to her on that phone before she went to bed that night, and And she said, oh, you're going, oh, yeah, I'm just a bit tired. And, I'm going to play up and have a sleep. I'm like, okay, righto, yeah. So I just didn't say anything. Anyway, nothing ever. I just had the feeling I'm never going to stop here again.
Yep.
Couldn't tell you why, but, still didn't know a Yowie existed. Didn't know a Bigfoot existed because I just never had the time. I'd get home for a 24-hour break on a Saturday, go again Sunday. Sometimes it'd be 2 weeks before I got home. And I just drove, listened to the radio or CD, and travelled along by myself. So 2007, I then left that company on interstate, and I started at a company that was based in Tamworth. And they had a contract to deliver to a major supermarket chain. And being that I was living in Newcastle, where we would load the groceries out of for those areas was out of their distribution centre in Warnervale, the Central Coast. So I would head down there on a Sunday. So I would bring the truck home. I would head down there. I would get home on a Saturday morning, Saturday lunch. Sunday afternoon, I would head down there. I'd load the groceries for Coonabarabran. Now, unlike when you would travel from Narrabri across to Coonabarabran, because you were coming up from the southeast, you would come up to Willow Tree, turn left, head out to Gunnedah, turn left at Gunnedah, and you would be on the southern edge of the Pilliga, heading up into Coonabarabran that way.
Yeah.
And for about the first 30 minutes of that trip, and again, probably about an hour, I think it used to be like an hour 25 going that way. The first 30 minutes or so, you come up to a town of Malali. It was all farming land up to then, but then you started to get into that Pilliga scrub and the road became narrow. It's a back road. The road's narrow. It's quite hilly in spots. There's some big drop-offs to the edge of the road. You really got to have your wits about you. And never do 100 through there. At most, I would sit on about 80 k's an hour. But I'd be coming through there between 5:30 in the morning. And the milk truck and the bread truck would unload before me. And they had a curfew because of the houses there that you weren't allowed on the dock before 6 a.m. anyway. So I would deliver there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So 3 times a week, every second day. Purely because then you would go back to Tamworth, have your rest, load that night for Sydney, bring something back to Warnervale, to the DC, load out of the DC for the following morning for Coonabarabran. But that became my regular run for 2 years.
Yep.
To me, I'm on this way on the southern side of the Pilliga. But I would be going through there, and where I'll stop for a second is, like we were talking about briefly the other night, and I was telling you that when you drive every night of the week in a truck throughout Australia from Townsville all the way to Adelaide, and in between, you become accustomed to, like way up north, you see some massive kangaroos.
Yes.
Right? And I'm talking bloody huge, mate. You're gobsmacked how big some of these roos can be. But you get to understand the behaviour. Like, for instance, if they're standing in the middle of the road, they'll take 1 or 2 hops off to the side of the road and sort of even just stand there and watch you go past. If they do jump out in front of you, it's just like they're standing on the side of the road and you think, oh, I hope you don't jump in front of me. And they'll start to hop off and they'll sort of dart to the left and then dart to the right and come in front of you. And you don't want to hit them because, number one, damage to your truck. But when they go under the truck, if they're big enough, they'll rip a brake line off the booster. And because the truck runs on air brakes, it just locks your brakes on. And it happened to me once before.
Yeah.
So you do your best to always avoid them. But you understand the behaviour of how they react to you on the road. And what I must say is that when I would travel through from Gunnedah across to Coonabarabran on that back road, you go through an area where it's real thick scrub called Rocky Glen.
Yep.
And you go up some steep inclines and things like that. Road narrows up. I would have kangaroos come shooting out of the bush at times like something was chasing them. I'd never seen a kangaroo move that fast. It just blew me away. Like, what sort of drugs are these kangaroos on? Seriously, like, it just to me felt like they were being chased, to be moving that fast.
Yeah.
And had shot out of the bush from nowhere. And I had really good spotlights on the bull bar.
Yeah.
And I would leave them on all the way through there. And they would just come out of nowhere. Now, the other thing was that in any other part of Australia, when I ran over a kangaroo or I saw a kangaroo that had been run over, you would go past a week later, 2 weeks later, and you would see, okay, it had been eaten away by the vultures and stuff, but the remnants of that kangaroo was still there 2 weeks later. So I would hit a kangaroo out there on a near weekly basis. And from that point, I had about a 25, 30-minute drive to get into the store into Coonabarabran. Because I had their produce on and the store opened at 7, they wanted to get me unloaded as quick as they could so they could get the produce straight on the shelf.
Yes.
And the produce was always up. They would put freezer up the front, put some pads up, then they would put the chiller and the produce, then they would put the dry behind that. So they rip the dry off and then they want their produce. And so they were in a hurry to get you unloaded. So I'd be in and out in 30 minutes. And then 30 to 40 minutes at the most. So when I'd be coming back through this exact spot, all up in total would be an hour 45. So if I was going through there at, say, 5:30, I'd come back through at 7, 7:15 in daylight. But I would hit these kangaroos out there, and I would put my foot on the brake pedal so it lit the road up behind me so I could see where they went. And you would see them roll out from beside your trailer and come to a stop on the side of the road or even just behind you. Okay, yep. And the thing is, when you travel a section of road every second day for 2 years, you get an intimate knowledge of that section of road.
Of course. Every
pothole, every hill, you can drive with your eyes closed.
Oh, I wouldn't try that.
So I would come back an hour and a half. Oh, yeah. I tried an hour and a half later. I would be coming back after hitting a kangaroo. And the kangaroo's gone. I could see the blood stain where it was. The kangaroo's gone. And this repeatedly happened to me every time I hit a kangaroo.
And I'll tell you what, there's some
in
weight.
In 2 years, there was only
weight,
one time I remember a kangaroo still being there after I'd hit it. And I'm thinking to myself, well, there it is. Like, there's the blood stain where I've hit it. There was even a slight lockup mark where I had sort of jumped on the brake to try and avoid it and locked the rear wheels up on the trailer a little bit. That's where I hit it. Where is it? It's not on the side of the road. It's nowhere to be seen. It's gone, but the bloodstain's there. Where's the kangaroo? Now, this section of road also, it was as rare as anything to ever come across a vehicle on that section of road because it wasn't the main highway. It was a back road, and there was no houses through there. You almost start thinking to yourself, is there someone with a ute or something that's following me through here every hour, picking up kangaroos that I've run over? So I couldn't understand it. And again, don't know anything about a Yowie. So it's now, and this was happening.
I was just going to interrupt. Just for everybody who's listening who's not in Australia, we're talking about the big red kangaroos. Now, even a small red kangaroo, there's a lot of weight in one of them. It's a 2-3 person thing to even move it, let alone hoist it up into a back of a ute or anything like that. So when you have the big ones, you know, you're talking lots and lots of weight in that. Just wanted to let people know because they think like it's a little skippy kind of thing. No, these are 2-3 times the size of them.
Oh yeah, yes, they are. I wouldn't even begin to think. It'd be easy 3 people to lift one of them things up.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is all happening to me around 2007, and then I started to notice smells that I couldn't describe, and it would just hit so quick. You'd be driving along, the whole road lit up in front of you in the dark, and I would have the window down. I'd like to have a bit of fresh air because at that time in the morning too, you start to feel a bit doughy that time in the morning, even though I was well rested. It's just that time before sunup. Every truck driver experiences the worst time to be on the road. So I'd have the window open, get a bit of fresh air, and this smell would hit you that you couldn't describe. It was just putrid. Now, this is where, and I would spray air freshener in the truck, wind the window up, and then I'd wind the window back down, and I'd stick my head out the window. It was gone. I couldn't smell it again. And I knew it was no dead animal that smelled like that. This is where the fire brigade and the tow truck driving job will come into play, as I'd mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Because I won't go into a lot of detail, but as a fireman in that 4.5 years, I went to many house fires where there were people that had been burnt. I went to many fatal car accidents. I went to a lot of fires where they were rubbish bin fires, where there was toxic fumes, gases, rubber, latex had burnt, and factories and things like that. So you become used to all these different smells that the average person would never smell in their lifetime.
No.
And quite sadly, as a tow truck driver, having the contract to tow cars for the police from crime scenes, there was on 3 occasions where people had sadly committed suicide in their vehicle by the way of gassing themselves.
Yeah.
And had driven their car deep into the bush where they wouldn't be found. And that car hadn't been recovered for a week. In one case, it was just over 2 weeks that guy had been missing for when they found him. So you can imagine what that smells like. It's like you won't wish that upon anybody.
Definitely not.
So I think as far as me saying, people say, oh, yeah, like the smell of these things, I haven't smelled anything like it. But I would think I am quite a fair bit more experienced in smells, considering those 2 roles alone that I did for those, 4.5 years.
Yeah.
That I had smelled so many things that most people will never get to smell in their lifetime. And I had a pretty good sense of what I thought was every type of smell you could imaginable.
Yep.
Yet here's this smell that is like nothing I've ever smelled. And it was just a putrid sort of sulfuric, rotten egg sort of, it was just horrid. And I had encountered that, I can't quite remember how many times. It was at least more than a couple of times a year.
Yeah.
It was probably 5-6 times a year. And over the course of 2 years. Well,
that's quite regular.
It's early 2009. March 2009, around there from memory. And I'm driving along this morning. It's 5:30 in the morning. I'm running a tiny little bit behind. I used to be a little bit in front of that. But the very first part of daylight would just be coming over the horizon. So it was almost like the moon was up a tiny bit, where it's pitch black, but when you're driving and you looked into the bush, you could see there was enough tiny light to see the outline of the trees.
Yes.
Between the trees sort of thing.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So I got the window down, having a cigarette, and I crest one of these steep hills where you were down to like 30 km an hour as you were getting to the top of the hill.
Yeah.
And this smell hits me. Like, what the hell is that? And I instantly looked to my right. I got the window down, so it's not a reflection from inside the cab of the truck.
Yeah.
And I looked to my right, and I saw these 2 large reddy, a little tiny bit orangey eyes.
Yeah.
And it's just instantly, what's that? And I'm looking at the outline of what I've always called it, an 8-foot tall tree stump.
Yeah.
And 4 or 5 foot wide. This massive tree stump with 2 reddy, orangey eyes sitting on top of it.
Sheesh.
And because I'm only doing like 30 k's an hour across the hill, I've then also lifted off the throttle. So I've probably slowed about 20. And what is that? What am I looking at? Maybe 3, maybe 4 seconds. I don't know. I'm looking at it. Look at that. It's a tree stump with 2 red eyes. Huge tree stump. What is that? And so it kind of spooked me. And I've kept going, okay? And all the way to the store, I'm thinking to myself, all right, I know exactly where it happened. Now, is there a trail leading into the bush? And then I'm looking at the tail light of a vehicle that's way down a track somewhere.
Yeah.
But I don't remember a trail going down into the bush. I know there was a trail along the edge of the bush line, parallel to the road.
Which you'd know exactly what it was then, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have a look on the way back. I know the spot.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a look on the way back. So I gets to the store and I unloads. I leaves there and I comes back in daylight. And I'm looking in my mirrors. There's no one behind me. I'm slowing down because I know exactly where it was. And there's no trail leading into the bush to say that that's a vehicle. It's just thick scrub. No vehicle would be able to drive in there. And there's no tree stump. And I'm kind of shocked. And first thought is, am I in the right spot? Have I missed it? Did I go past it and not notice it? Well, I spent the next nearly 6 months, every day that I went past there in the morning, on the way out in the dark, on the way back in sunlight, in daylight, and for nearly 6 months, I never, ever found
the tree stump.
4 foot, 5 foot wide, 8 foot tall tree stump with red eyes. Never found it. There were thinner trees there, but nothing like that. It wasn't there. So, again, I still don't know Bigfoot or Yowie exists. I have no idea what I'm thinking. What was that? Okay. And when I say a tree stump, it's almost, to me, it's in the shape of a figure of a person, but I can only think it's a tree stump.
Because of the size.
Right?
Yeah.
With 2 red eyes, because of the size, the sheer size.
Yeah.
And how I place it at 8 foot, if anyone that doesn't know, you can jump onto Google and type in a cab over Kenworth truck, a K1. It's a cab over truck. It doesn't have a bonnet, and where you sit is on top of the motor. Now, I never actually measured it myself, but I know when I think about it, if I was standing beside the truck, my island would be middle of the door. But when you're sitting in the truck would be another 3 foot higher where your eye line would be. So I imagined that my eye line was 9 foot.
Sounds about right.
But the actual embankment on the side of the road where this was, the embankment went up a foot, just a little bit, about a foot.
Yep.
So that was how I got my measurement of its eye line being around 8 foot. Now, for that nearly 6 months, like I say, I never found a tree stump. Okay. Well, I had been going through some relationship troubles for about 6 months, a bit more. Things weren't happy between us. And it just so happens that instead of going to Coonabarabran this morning, they've sent me to a store at Glen Innes. And I gets up there and on the loading dock, run into an incident there and I broke my foot. Carted me off to the hospital. Somebody had to come and get the truck. I got a lift back to Tamworth after I got out of hospital. My foot was in a plaster cast. And my partner, she had originally come from Tamworth. Her 2 sisters, her parents lived there. She drove up from Newcastle, picked me up, took me home. So I'm now parked up on the lounge with a plaster cast and don't know what to do with myself. Okay. So one afternoon, she's at work. She would get home about 6 o'clock at night. One afternoon, the 4 o'clock news comes on NBN, Channel 9. And here's this guy by the name of Rex Gilroy they're interviewing, and he's talking about these 2 ladies that have had a full daytime sighting the day before of this 8 foot tall Yowie. I'm thinking, the hell's a Yowie? So I'm laying there on the lounge and I sit up and I remember the story. One of the ladies, there was 2 ladies in a car towing a caravan and they were going up this mountain range and they've come around a corner and the huge male Yowie was standing in front of them on the road around the bend. They would go to their brother's place, who he had a farm up in there.
Yep.
An orange farm, and they would go there every year to help him pick all the oranges. So they've obviously knew what this creature was. They've gotten onto the internet, made contact with Rex Gilroy, who I would then find out is done a lot of research on not just Yowies, like mainly Yowies, but UFOs, thylacines, things like that.
Yep.
So, very well-known man. Anyway, he's come straight out up to Taree, which was, 2 hours north of Newcastle, and done this report, and the news has come out, and he's showing them footprints that he's casting on the side of the road, and I'm blown away by this story. So I jump straight on the computer, and I types in Rex Gilroy, and I starts finding out all this information on his website, and this leads me into these creatures are known to have these red eyes, be 8 to 10 foot tall. They start talking about the smells.
Yep.
I'm like, what the hell? And then the more I look into it, he starts talking about the Pilliga being one of the most famous spots in Australia for the most sightings. I'm like, what? You've got to be kidding me. I'm thinking red eyes, 8 foot tall.
Sounds familiar.
Smells.
Yep.
And then it's hit me. And I sat there stunned. And my partner's come home. And, of course, we're not going too well. We're on a bit of rocky ground. She's come home from work, and I've made her a coffee. And even she sort of noticed there must have been something a little bit off. She said, "Are you all right?" Like, yeah, I'm just tired. I'm a lot of pain in my foot. And I just want to get on the internet and keep looking for this thing. And I don't want to sort of, tell her.
Yeah.
So she goes to work the next day, and I'm there half the morning. I end up ringing Rex, and I actually had a conversation with the guy, lovely man, and then told him about I was always driving through the Pilliga and this and that. Oh, yeah, mate, yeah, I know. There's been a lot of sightings up there. Yeah, I would certainly say that's what you encountered. So from there, I starts researching a little bit more. I didn't quite find AYR's website at the time, but I think on Google or something or Yahoo search, I found Bigfoots. Started looking into Bigfoots because there seemed to be more about them, and they were similar creatures. Off I went. Well, in this 6 weeks that I'm laid up, we've split up. The relationship's ended, and my mum and her new partner, my stepdad, that I call my dad because he's an awesome dude, he living in Coffs Harbour, and they had a granny flat available. So, I needed somewhere to live. So, hopped the train up to Newcastle. Friend came down, helped me move my stuff out back to Coffs. And I'm then in this situation where now my foot's gotten better, but I'm now living in Coffs Harbour, not Newcastle. I've ended my time at the company I was working with at Tamworth. So I've got to take a trip across to Tamworth from Coffs Harbour to go and collect my belongings out of the truck in the yard. Well, my granddad was living in Armidale. So I said to Mum, well, come for a trip. I'll drop you off at Pop's place. You can spend the day. I'll duck down to Tamworth, get my things, pick you up on the way back, spend a bit of time with Pop. We'll head home. Yeah, cool. So I didn't have my own car at the time. So we've hired a car. And hiring a car, you don't want to smoke in the car, of course. So we heads across up through Dorrigo, Ebor, left, across to Armidale. And as much as I had travelled the New England Highway countless times, the Pacific Highway, I'd never done the trip across through Dorrigo, Ebor into Tamworth that way. So it's all new, and we're heading across early morning. Cool. I've shot my grandfather's. I said to Mum, I'll go to Tamworth, I'll get me things, catch up with a couple of my mates down there, head back and be back early this afternoon. So we does that and gets back to Armidale, spends a bit of time with my granddad, catching up, looking at some of his cars he's doing up and chatting and having coffee. And it starts to get dark, and I says to Mum, look, we should really get going because the kangaroos will be out. And I don't want to have to pay the insurance excess on this hire car if we hit one.
Oh,
so,
I know that. I know that feeling. We did that when we went to Broken Hill. We did the Silverton run, and we did it at night to do some nighttime photography. And yeah, a $5,000 excess with 1 million kangaroos on a short stretch of road is a very nerve-wracking proposition.
Oh, terrible, yeah. So we leaves. Well, no, it would have been getting dark. It would have been 6 o'clock or something. No, it would have been a bit later than that, 6:30 or something. We went and got some dinner at in Armadale at McDonald's, got a coffee. So we've headed out of there, got some fuel, headed out of there. Might have even been 7:30. And it's dark. And gets, well, I didn't know it at the time because this is the first time I'm travelling this road at night as well.
Yeah.
Which is an area called Wallow Mumbai. And Mum said, "Oh, look at how dark it is." And I said, "Yeah, it's awesome, hey." I said, "This is what I used to love to do in the truck." She said, "Oh, can we have a cigarette?" "Yeah, I'll pull over." So I pulls over this little gravel area on the side of the road. And we get out of the car. And a million stars. I walks around the passenger side of the car. And we're standing there. We both lit a cigarette, took one puff of it. And then I started to get this feeling within 30 seconds of, this is what happened to me at the Pilliga back in 2005. And I didn't want to say anything to Mum because Mum had a heart condition. I didn't want to scare her.
Yeah.
But I noticed Mum's no longer looking up at the stars. She's looking straight ahead into the bush. And I'm not realising that Mum's got the early onsets of this fear as well.
Yeah. It's not just you.
It's not just me. And she's just dead quiet. She's not talking. She's just looking straight ahead. And then all of a sudden, this stick snaps. And it was a loud snap. And if it had been a kangaroo that got startled and hopped off into the bush or something and hopped onto a stick, it would not have been able to have broken a stick this big to have been that loud. It was a loud snap of this stick. My mum startled and she's, "What's that?" And I said, "It's okay. It's probably just a kangaroo hopping off in the bush." And I had sort of half read about the stick snapping. So again, I don't want her to be scared. So I'm being quiet. And we didn't even get to have a second puff on a cigarette. Mum's dropped her cigarette at around the same time that the fear overwhelms me. And she just started yelling, "Get in the car now." And she was freaking out. And she couldn't get in that passenger seat quick enough. And it hit me hard too. And I ran just like I did at the Pilliga. And I got in that car, spun the wheels out of there, and we were gone. As we're driving down the road, Mum's freaking out. "What was that? What was that? Did you feel that? Did you feel that?" She just couldn't stop asking, "Did you feel that? What was it?" And I'm trying to calm her down to explain that in 2005, I had this exact same thing happen to me.
Yeah.
Scared me, made me run just like it did now. But I can't get Mum to calm down enough to be able to try and explain it. So by the time we get to Dorrigo, she wanted to pull up. We were in the main street, in the lights, this Safety. In the town centre. Yeah. We pull up at Dorrigo, and she gets out and she smokes 2-3 cigarettes, one after the other.
Wow.
And she's still got the shakes about her, and she's wanting to know what. And I said, "Look, when we get home, I will show you some websites," and was trying to explain to her about these other people feeling the same thing when they've had a Yowie encounter.
Yeah.
I was like, really? We eventually get home to Coffs Harbour. Mum straight to my stepdad. "Oh, this happened?" And he's kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah, right. He's not really believing us, and which is hard when, I could sort of see it in Mum's face, like she's trying to get him to believe what has happened, and he's brushing it off a bit. "Oh, could have been anything." Yeah, well, I'm experiencing it for the second time, and I'm sort of blown away myself that I was so excited for her to climb out of the car in the dark with me to be able to look at these amazing stars in the pitch black darkness. And that happened. And I'm like, okay. So we makes coffee, settle down. And I jump straight on the internet and I start to show her the things I've been looking for and about the Yowie, and there's pictures and like hand-drawn ones and people's experiences with the fear, and Mum's just talking head off and couldn't stop talking about how, it just put a shiver through her and it just scared her like she's never felt that before and couldn't understand what it was, no matter how much I tried to explain it. So, all right, so that's happened, and this was August 2009, September 2009. So anyway, my foot's recovered. I need to get back into work, restart my life again. I'm single. So I dived headlong into driving trucks, and I started travelling back through the Pilliga again. Only this time I'm now armed with the information that I didn't have before.
Yes.
Yeah, do you think I wanted to stop at any one of them truck stops or rest areas along the Pilliga? No. I'll keep going, thanks. I'm not going to stop here. So I would stop at the Shell Narrabri, or I would stop at Gilgandra. I wouldn't even pull up in Coonabarabran, to be honest. Just off I go. And then I had a job where I was mainly just travelling the coast road. That was all I did. Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, back to Brisbane. So I had done that for a few years. And then it would have been 2000, the year 2000, I came across podcasts, listening to podcasts. Now, let me recall as I think about it, because this will probably have to be a whole other conversation for a different time, because I don't really want to go down this road at the moment.
Okay.
But in 2018, the car that I still have now, the Renault Koleos, I bought brand new in 2018, in June 2018.
Yep.
And I was living out near Penrith at a place called Landilo. And I was working for a guy who had 3 tipper trucks. It was myself, Matty, and Laurie that worked for him, for Charlie. And he had them parked on his property at Castlereagh. Yep. So it was only 7 minutes to work. I was loving it. I didn't have to drive an hour to work. Good. So 7 minutes to work. I'd been off for 2 weeks. And on the Monday morning, at about 5 to 4 in the morning, I'm driving to his house, and I'm nearly at his house in Castlereagh. And I turn the corner in my brand new car that's only like a month and a half old, 2 months old, and it's got really good LED headlights on it, and they go right out to the far sides of the roads on High Beam.
Yeah.
Around this tight corner, and I see what I can only say is a massive black panther stand up off the side of the road in the long grass. It stood up, and its eye shine was what drew attention to me.
Yeah.
It turned, I had it fully lit up in the headlights, and it walked back off into the woods through the long grass.
So how much detail did you actually see?
I saw a lot of it. I remember seeing the back paws of this thing, huge paws, lift up as it took the steps off its back legs, walking into the grass. I remember the curve in the top of its back. That was well above the grass line. And as I would later measure that afternoon in daylight, when I stopped there, that tall grass came to the lower part of my thigh above my knee.
Yeah.
And I could clearly see the top of its back above that grass. So this thing's at my hip height. I don't know any feral cat that comes up to your hip.
No.
Seriously. Right? But what got me was the tail. It was how shiny the coat was, the black coat.
Yeah.
It was that tail, that hooked tail, where the tail comes down in a hook and comes back up, and is completely rounded at the end. Like, I will never forget the detail I saw. In about 4 seconds, I got to see this thing.
Yeah.
And I got to work, and I rang Matty, because Matty had left a couple of minutes in front of me. I rang Matty, and I'd been off for 2 weeks. This was a Monday morning. And Laurie had already left the yard as well. I rang Matty, said good morning, where are you? Oh, I'm down here getting some fuel. I told him what I'd seen, and he said, mate, you need to speak to Laurie, because on Friday morning, Laurie had that thing run across the road. It's come from the Nepean River across Castlereagh Road in front of him. So I rang Laurie, and Laurie tells me he's seen it. That afternoon back at the yard, our boss, Charlie, the airbaz, when we lived at Wallacia, I had seen it 3 times on my property. It bailed my big Alsatian dog up under the deck one morning. And so I started looking into the panther sightings, which I had previously heard around the Nepean, Hawkesbury, Blue Mountains, Lithgow, Bathurst, all these panther sightings.
Yeah.
And I got into a massive argument with my best mate at the time, who I considered like a brother, because he's trying to talk me down, saying, no, mate, I'm telling you now, it would have been a feral cat. And I'm actually got into a full-on argument where I abused the guy because you won't tell me that was a feral cat. I brought up photos on Google. It's a panther, mate. That's what I saw. So it sort of got me down this path of starting to research a panther. And I, for once, didn't feel crazy because my mate Laurie I worked with had saw the same thing on the Friday morning. My boss had sighted it 3 times on his other property they used to live at Wallacia, where there had been a lot of sightings of them there. Yeah. So for once, I didn't feel crazy to be able to talk about. But anyway, we'll go from there. We'll go back to the hour.
Yeah.
So 2020, I'm listening to a lot of podcasts about Bigfoot, and I'm coming across some pretty awesome researchers. And then I started to get into a lot of the YouTube videos, and especially the AYR ones, Australian Yowie Research.
Yep.
And it's 2021, and Bignell was doing the witness reports for Dean Harrison for AYR. And she'd interviewed this lady who had what I would consider one of the most amazing reports ever taken of a Yowie. There's a place called Hickey's Falls, and when you leave Coonabarabran heading south to Ugandra, Hickey's Falls isn't that far down the road, and there's a car park area, and it goes up into a swimming hole, waterfall.
Yeah.
And I listened to that, and what makes that so special is that there was a policeman involved in that who, anyway, I won't go into that full story. If people want to go to the AYR YouTube channel and look up the Hickey's Falls one, I'll let them listen to it because it is pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
But also, Sarah then, a few episodes later, she's interviewed this guy who him and his mate were out chasing rabbits at a place called Wallamumbai.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, Wallamumbai? Why does that sound familiar to me?
Yeah.
So I got onto Google Maps and I looked where Wallamumbai was, and I realised, well, that's between Armidale and Ebor. And so I'm listening to this report, and this guy is saying how they've come from Armidale, and he said, you come down into Wallamumbai, and you've got the old Kempsey Road, and you turn right. And just there is where we were hunting these rabbits. And they had a full daytime sighting of this huge yowie, which was, and I'm listening to this going, oh, Kempsey Road, right? So I've re-listened to it, right? Okay, yep. Pinpoint exactly where it was on Google Maps. And I've gone to the satellite view. When I've gone to the satellite view, I'm then able to see the gravel area where myself and Mum pulled up.
Ooh.
200 metres up the road from where this guy had this full daytime sighting. So then you start to think to yourself, hang on a second, before I even knew these creatures existed, I've had this happen to me, especially in 2005, with the fear that made me run like crazy to get in that truck. Before I knew a Yowie existed, that was in the Pilliga. And I find out it's one of the biggest hotspots going. Yes. And now, the second time it happened to me, in 2009, I was with Mum. And here it is 2020, and this guy's come on 2021. Here's Sarah Bignell from AYR taking this witness report for a guy that's coming forward to tell his story from what he'd seen there in the daytime, in the exact spot where my mum was, 200 metres across the road.
Yeah.
How is this possible, right? I started to look into things a lot further. I really started to get into podcasts. I ended up speaking to Sarah. I didn't want to be recorded. I didn't want to go on to their show or anything like that. I just wanted to be able to talk to her and say, this is what happened to us at Wallamumba, where you recently took this witness report. And, you know, there are all these other encounters that you've recorded. This is what's happened to me at the Pilliga. So it was a way for me to be able to just share that with someone, because Mum was the only one that I talked to. So then in 2022, I'm working for a new company, and I would drive an hour south from my place near Penrith down to a place called Ingleburn, where I was working for a haulage company that had tipper trucks loading out of quarries. And I became pretty good mates with a guy named Chad. And he's a bit younger than me. Chad would be mid-30s. And anyway, we've gone down there to load at 5 in the morning, gone to tap our card on the weighbridge. The card doesn't work. The account hasn't been topped up. We've now got to wait till 7 a.m. till the lady arrives on the weighbridge so we can get it sorted.
Yeah.
All right. We'll go up the road and we'll get breakfast and we'll come back and we'll sit in the truck and wait till 7 o'clock. So as much as I'm still scared to talk to anybody about Yowies, thinking somebody's going to think I'm crazy or whatever, like most people are, because I had been following up on things on panthers, as we're sitting in the truck chatting away, we're looking at our phones and this thing pops up about panthers on Facebook, and I looked over at Chad and I said, mate, do you believe in these panthers? Well, his eyes lit up. Oh, mate, yeah, bro. And Yowies and stuff like that and Bigfoot. And I'm like, what? Are you serious? You believe in Yowies? And yeah, mate, yeah. Like, I listen to podcasts and everything. That's it. That's just set me off, because I've now got a mate that believes in this subject that I can talk to. Well, as soon as I started to then share my story with him, he would not shut up asking me question after question after question. It was, we shared podcast stories we'd listened to, information, like it was all we talked about. And then Chad says to me, have you ever wanted to go out sort of doing a bit of research yourself? And I said, mate, I've always wanted to, never had anybody to go with that until now, but yeah, that'd be awesome. And he said, well, we should go. Where should we go to?
Yep.
And I said, well, what I think we should do is we should start at the Blue Mountains, because there has been so much activity at Glenbrook. There's been so much activity at Hazelbrook with full sightings and found all this sort of stuff and blah, blah, blah. And also some great stories out of the Magalong Valley. Okay, so we plans it all. And so you would think too, guys, that all of a sudden we're going to become Yowie researchers. We would have come prepared, right? Chad jumps online and straight away orders himself a parabolic mic.
That's a good bit to start with that.
Yeah, like he spent maybe $150 on it. She wasn't the flashiest thing in the world, right? She's from Timu or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's all excited. I got a parabolic mic. So we've planned this trip. Well, because he's got a girlfriend and a little daughter, he was a little bit late getting away that morning. He's got an hour drive to my place, and I already live not far from the base of the Blue Mountains. But we're getting away a little bit late. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning. By the time we had a coffee, come on, let's go. He's got his Canon camera with a big long lens, and as he goes to swap the lens over, the lens breaks where it screws into the mount on the Canon camera, and he's devastated. The only thing I've got's a bloody torch. Well, I've got a torch at least. And it was like freezing cold, so we hadn't even bought beanies or gloves or nothing. We had to buy them from the chemist up on the hill at Glenbrook.
Oh, wow, you're really going cowboy with it.
So, we weren't prepared. we weren't going out there to be big-time researchers. We just wanted to have the experience of going to a place where we had listened to these reports from. There's a guy by the name of Yowie Dan who had done a lot of research at Glenbrook. He had found footprints, what he believed was handprints. He had found other things and I think had a sighting there at Glenbrook. And there had been other sightings. We knew Dean Harrison from AYR had some magnificent sightings with one they called Fatfoot.
Yeah.
And I remembered his interview with Arthur Gray, who was an elderly gentleman that originally spoke to the newspapers, got hold of Dean Harrison, who came down and interviewed him, and he went out with Dean, and they had these amazing sightings this night of this creature. And they're the areas we want to go to. And then what we will do is after we've had a look through the daytime, we will pick one of those three places to come back to at night. And we'll just sit there and listen, right? We're not going to go walking up in the bush. We don't feel comfortable to do that. We just want to sit and listen by the car. Off we heads up into Glenbrook. Soon discovers it's a national park. You've got to pay to get in, but the gates close at 4 o'clock. We're not going to be able to come back here at night if we find something. And as we're driving in, we've got the exact location pinpointed on the map where Yowie Dan had all of his stuff. But we're soon realising that, geez, the morning's getting on and it's another 6 k's dirt road. Let's just stop here and just have a quick look around here. We can come back another time. And so we get out of the car. We find this little parking spot, gets out of the car, and the road leading in, parallel to that is a track where people would walk, run, ride mountain bikes, things like that. So we comes onto this track and we start walking back in the direction where we've just came from. And as I had said to Chad, I always think don't look where you walk, but look off to the sides, because from every report people say they felt like they were being parallel.
Yes.
So my theory is, instead of looking at where you're walking because you're going to see a heap of footprints from everybody else, look off to the sides. Just concentrate what's to your left and right in the bush, and especially more so to your left. Just look in there, see if anything looks out of place. So having listened to enough podcasts, watched documentary, you start to sort of see tree structures and signs and things like that. So we're just having a look to see what we can see. And we comes across, now I've sent you these photos, Gary, which you would have.
Yes.
The first one's being that shelter. And I say it's a shelter because we're walking along, it's a bit of long grass, but there's some more open type areas. And it's about maybe 20, 30 metres in.
Yeah.
Sees what looks like a shrub, but to me, shrub doesn't look right where it is. So I said to Chad, I want to go in here and have a look. So I walks in to have a look at it. And from the front, it just looked like a shrub. Until you walked around the back and noticed that, as you can see via the photos, from the backside of it, it's a whole different looking thing. It's like a half igloo. It's like more of a shelter, but if you have a look at those photos close up, you will see that there's about 4 or 5 species of tree that's interwoven with this. And it's like, that's not just a normal shrub. This has got all different species of tree stick and foliage, and it's woven together into almost this shape of a half igloo sort of thing.
Yeah, almost like a basket.
Now,
it's all weaved together.
But then we're looking at the base of it, and although there was grass over the top of it, it was all flattened down like something heavy had been kneeling in there or sitting in there, because the ground was really pressed down in there.
Yeah.
Whereas everywhere else around it, the grass all stood up. But there, it's like something's been sitting there.
Yeah, it's almost like a nest type situation.
And I said to Chad, I said, from the front of it, you can't, I said to him, go in behind it. And I went around to the front of it, and I said, I can't really see you sitting behind it. But when you went in behind it, you could clearly see people walking, running, riding their mountain bikes up and down the trail.
It's almost like a hunter's blind.
Exactly, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, what would somebody get out of that? because you're looking back towards the trail where people are walking.
Yeah.
Right. So why would you spend so much time building this? And things start to go through your head. And then you start to think, well, as I said to Chad, can you imagine that if people were walking along that trail at night, and just like all these encounters people have, where they hear a stick break, they hear a growl, they hear a noise, and they got their torch and they're looking everywhere and they can't see anything. Wouldn't this be the perfect shelter in this open area to be hiding behind? Because no matter how hard you shine that torch, you would never see a creature behind that.
No.
You would never see a Yowie hiding behind it in the dark. Not even in the daytime. You would struggle. They just sat there quietly behind that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't see them. And they could sit there and be watching you.
That's a scary proposition.
So, okay.
It actually adds to the whole thing that you were saying earlier about not seeing anything but getting that sudden sense of fear, because you think about it, something like that, one of the most primal things that they talk about is a thing called infrasound. And infrasound is not audible to the human ear, but you can still sense it. And that's what they use in a lot of scary films to get you on edge. And it sounds very much like a very powerful version of that.
Can I tell you something that came to mind listening to a podcast just a day or so ago? There was a guy that was, can't remember if it was your one. There was a guy up North Queensland. Sorry, I'm getting over the flu. It was North Queensland, I'm sure it was. And I could be wrong. I would have to re-listen. He never believed in Yowies at all. You had heard about him, never believed it. And him and a mate had these hunting dogs, and they would go hunting for pigs. And they sent these dogs in to this block of land, and these dogs came out of there absolutely tail between their legs and were scared, wouldn't go back in there. They couldn't work out what was going on. The dogs refused to go back in there. They couldn't understand it. And then they started to get growled at by something that they said, that was no pig, man. Like the growl on this thing was that loud. So it got me thinking about, because you've heard so many times where people say, oh, this dog that wasn't scared of anything, yet it went in there and it came running out 100 miles an hour, tail between its legs, after having an interaction with a Yowie or a Bigfoot. And I got to thinking, and I thought, you know how they say dogs and cats can pick up signals we can't? They hear things we can't?
Yeah, because their hearing can hear outside of the human frequency, and their eyes can see outside of our visual spectrum as well.
Okay, so you hear them people in America say, my dog's gone after big black bears and everything like that, and blah, 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 and it's never been scared before. Yet it came across this Bigfoot and put its tail between its legs and took off. And you start to think that a black bear, if it was to stand up on its two back legs, could be 6 foot tall, something like that, growl, rah. You would think a dog would be scared of that, wouldn't you? What makes a dog panic that bad? When these people never heard a growl come from this Bigfoot, never heard a sound in the bush, but their dog went in and their dog turned and ran back past them, the tail between its legs, and was too scared to go, and they didn't hear any sound in that bush. Could it be that the dogs are getting an infrasound in the same way we receive them as well?
Yeah, but it'd be like times a lot more for them, because you got to think about it as well. When you're talking infrasound, because a Yowie is so damn big, their lung capacity is massive. With infrasound being such a low rumble, they could probably maintain a fairly intense infrasound growl for a fairly long period of time. And it actually makes me think, from what you've been saying as well, that you know how people say, oh, I've never seen one when I go out in the bush, but sometimes you'll get the creeps, you'll walk in a different direction. Maybe it's a defense mechanism for one of them to get you away. And it's only when
out frequency that animals will detect before us.
Yes.
And for us, it's more intensified to get us to leave the area. We don't want you here. Go. And we don't want you to see us, but it's putting out this infrasound in a higher capacity that reaches us, puts a fear in us to take off. And they're smart enough to know that it's going to work.
Yeah, and the thing about infrasound, the thing about infrasound is
I don't have to let you hear me or see me.
Correct.
You're going to start running.
Yep, that's it. You don't hear it, but you feel it.
Way of getting you out, right?
Correct.
So anyway, where was I? The scrub, the bush thing, right?
Yep.
I think the next photo I sent you was these footprints. Now again, here we are, expert Yowie researchers all of a sudden. Don't bring a tape measure with us. Don't think to, when we're holding our big work boots that we're wearing beside this footprint, to then take a photo. Just takes 2 quick photos of this footprint that looks fresh because there's no leaf litter over the top of it.
Yep.
But it's buried like an inch in the ground, and we're jumping up on solid ground and can't make an impression beside it.
Yeah.
So I sort of snaps a photo, but it was at least 3 inches longer than our work boots, which are size 11s. All right, but there's no tread in it. It's just a bare footprint. Like, okay, so all right, kicking myself now. I now actually carry plaster of Paris, a bag that I bought from Bunnings, in the back of the car with water in case I ever come across. So now I know that.
That's a good
thing.
So
I can cast a footprint. Yeah, I just keep it in the car. But at the time, didn't think to record it. Like, we were kind of in a hurry as well, and we weren't never expecting to find anything.
Yeah.
And then just down from the footprint, sorry, mate, just down from the footprint, there's these 2 trees. And there's another tree between the fork of these 2 trees, and it's 8 foot in the air. And it looks like a set of goalposts, which you've got the photo of. So your first thought is, well, a branch has fallen off another tree and fallen between the fork of those 2 trees, until you realise that it's a different species of tree. It's a different, when you zoom in and have a look at the bark, you can clearly see it's a different species of tree to even the 2 trees that it's placed between.
Yeah, so it's been placed
It hasn't come off them.
Yeah.
So then I'm standing there looking at it, and I'm saying to Chad, that's a pretty big branch, right? And he's going, oh, mate, that's huge. And I said, it's 8 foot in the air, and it's like off the path here. Like, how many blokes would it take with at least a couple of ladders to grab that thing and want to climb up there to place it 8 foot in the air between the fork of those 2 trees? Why would somebody do that?
Yeah.
And so we stood there for quite a while looking at it, took some photos, and couldn't explain it, right? How does that happen? Okay, right, look, we're running out of time. We really want to get to Hazelbrook. So we leaves there. We're going to come back. We leaves there. We goes and gets a pie and a coffee, buys ourselves a couple of beanies at the chemist there in Glenbrook, straight up to Hazelbrook, down the end of Winbourne Road. We're only going by what we have watched and listened to, read about from what Dean Harrison's had happen at Hazelbrook and other people.
Yeah.
So we don't know the exact location. And in any of those interviews, I've never heard them talk about there's a white gate at the end of Winbourne Road. They've got a gate there, which then becomes the fire trail or whatever. But to the left of that, all right, we'll back the car in here. We gets out of the car. Chad's got his parabolic mic with him. And off we goes, walks a little bit up this trail, which goes a little bit uphill past the white gate. And I said, listening to those, Chad, I said, he talks about there's these narrow trails that go deep in the valley. Well, there's a valley right down there to my left, and there's a valley that goes down to our right. Way before you get to this white gate, the houses are a long way back up the road. Okay. I said, let's come over to the right and have a look here. So, well, I guess we're on the eastern side of that road. We walks over, there's a huge big stump laying there on the ground, and we starts to notice there's a track going down. And I said to him, rather than stay on the main sort of road, you want to go down this track a bit. Yeah, okay, let's go down there. Now, what I had also said to him was, because Chad had said to me, should we make wood knocks? Should we do calls? Should we do that? And I said, I don't think we should. And the reason I say that is because when you listen to any encounter from a witness, they were just on a bushwalk. They were just sitting there quietly camping.
Yeah.
Weren't expecting anything to happen when they had things happen to them. And I said, so therefore, I don't want to go and make wood knocks. I don't want to go and do a call. I don't want to do what a lot of people do. I just want to come and have a look and just be quiet and just be the average person and see what happens. And we're not expecting for anything to happen. So we had already talked about this weeks before. Armed with that, there's this narrow track and it was steep going down. And it's like, I don't know how I'm going to go coming back up here, but I walked down a little bit and we just started to walk down this little narrow track. And lo and behold, what rocked us, 3 extremely loud wood knocks from our right. And this is 11:30 in the morning, and it sounded like a huge hollowed-out baseball bat. I couldn't imagine a person making a wood knock that loud, right?
Yeah.
And straight after, to our left, way down deeper in the valley, whack, one response. And it stopped us in our tracks. We stopped dead where we were and just stood there. We didn't move a muscle. We just stood there and listened. And then after about 15 minutes, I pointed to Chad, go up, go up. We quietly walked back up to where the stump was and we sat there.
Yep.
Chad put his backpack down. We just sat there. And we just whispered. And the first thing we said was, did you hear that? You couldn't miss it, right? And I said to him, that was 3 extremely loud knocks. And the one response sounded like it was done from a different species of tree branch.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't as hollow as the one that did the 3 to the right.
Yeah.
And you couldn't see into this valley. And we're like, there's no way a person down there could see, or a couple of people could see us coming down this track. And who would be waiting for 2 guys to come walking down this track to do wood knocks? Who would be down there? It's near impossible for us to get down there. Who would be down there? So we sat there with our minds reeling and instantly said, this is where we need to come back to tonight. We walked back up and had said, let's stay on the main dirt road and let's walk up a bit and see, because once it goes up, we know it's then going to go down, and via Google Maps, there was a creek down at the bottom.
Yes.
Okay, we'll walk along a bit. And as we walked along a bit, you will then see what we showed you was there is that huge tree that has been snapped, and it's a fresh snap, right?
Yep.
And it's like, we're looking at this thing. That's not a dead tree. That is fresh. And it's almost been twisted as it's been snapped. What would have the force to do that?
Something pretty strong.
And it was fresh. So it had been done at least within a couple of days, it must be. And then as we're walking up the trail, it comes to this stick in the ground, jammed in the ground. And Chad's going, the stick's down up in the ground. Because he had seen about it on podcasts and things like that. And then I looked up and I said, Chad, look up. And he goes, what's up? And he thought I had seen something. And he's looking up going, what? I said, there's no tree canopy over us. So it hasn't fallen from a tree, and it speared itself into the ground. Well, Chad grabs it and pulls it out, and it's like 3 inches in the ground.
Wow.
And we're struggling to get it back in to the same hole. Like, how would a stick like that spear itself into how would a person bury it 3 inches into the hard sandstone ground like that.
Well, if a person was burying it, you would have seen marks that it would have been dug in. This just sounds like it's been jammed in by something really strong.
Well, it was jammed in because when we pulled it out, it was clean. It was like the actual outside of the stick was clean. It wasn't, if you were trying to get it into the ground, you'd be twisting it, you'd be damaging the stick.
Correct.
So, again, I think we took 2 or 3 photos of this thing. We should have taken a hell of a lot more. Great researchers we are. But we're pretty on edge with what we're sort of finding, right? So we need to come back. So, okay, look, let's go and have a look at the Megalong Valley. So we head to the Megalong Valley. When he drives up there, there's the road that goes down the valley. We'll keep going straight ahead, brings you to this big lookout. And it was amazing, right? So there's me and Chad. There was one other family up there. It was pretty quiet. We went up to the actual lookout ourselves, then we came back toward the car and we just sat on a rock ledge by ourselves away from this family. And we just looking down the valley, quietly talking, and we were just listening to see if we could hear things. And we decided, let's go and have a drive down there. So we drove to the bottom, had a look. Okay. I really think we need to go back to Hazelbrook. We need to get dinner. We need to go and set ourselves back up in Hazelbrook. So off we went. We found a pizza shop open. We went and got pizzas. We drove back to Hazelbrook and the Windbourne Road, parked in the exact same spot. Neither of us, like I said to Chad, I don't feel comfortable to leave the car. Like, I'm happy to stand here in the dark beside the car, but I don't feel comfortable to walk up past that gate and up the trail. And he's like, no, me either. So we just stood at the front of the car. And we'd left everything else in the car, the phones, a whole lot. It was cold. I got my torch out, had a pretty good torch.
Yeah.
I got that out and I sat it on the bonnet of the car. We had the pizza sitting on the bonnet and we just stood there and listened quietly. We just acted like 2 normal campers. We just stood there quiet as anything, eating our pizza. And we're quietly talking about what we had happened with the wood dogs, what had, rah, rah, rah. Now, of course, Chad's never done anything like this. He's never driven trucks interstate. He's not had anything happen to him. He's just a guy that is right into, his Bigfoots, Panthers, paranormal, all sorts of stuff, right?
Yes, as we are.
Never experienced anything. So he can't wrap his head around what I'm trying to explain to him about an infrasound and what it feels like, okay?
Yeah.
So we're there, we've eaten our pizzas, and then we've lit a cigarette, and I think we're halfway through our pizza or whatever. We lit a cigarette. We'd been there maybe 20 minutes, and we're looking at the valley that went to the west. Where we had the wood knocks, that was the valley to the right of that track. We're looking at the valley that goes to the west to our left. And it's pitch black. And there's no sound. It's just dead quiet. So standing beside the car, having a cigarette, and all of a sudden, in the distance, we heard like this high-pitched whistle sort of howl it went for nearly 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, lung capacity.
Right? And it was kind of like at the end of it. I'll try and do it. It kind of went like, it had like that wah at the end of it, but it had a high pitch to the whole thing. And I said to Chad, there is no train that will pull on a horn for 30 seconds, mate. Right? They won't do it because there is so many houses through those two, right? So we knew it wasn't a train, not with that pitch, not for the length of time. And it was the what at the end of it, how it changed. All of a sudden, dogs started going off their nut.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, it's coming back to me. God, Dean Harrison, the interview where he's saying, all of a sudden we knew we were getting activity because the dog started going crazy in the distance.
I need to stop you right there, because if you go back through my channel and have a look, there's the video where we do a Yowie investigation, and we did we did the calls and the dogs did not react, but we got 2 responses that I've picked up anyway on the video. You can hear them if you go back and watch it. And it sets the bloody dogs off.
Yep.
So when you're talking about that, it's exactly what we had.
And we didn't make any sound. Like I said to Chad before this, I don't want to go and make calls like a lot of people do. I just, like I reiterate that to me personally, I understand people wanting to do calls, wanting to do wood knocks and things like that. But to me, in every person's encounter, they were just a normal person going on a bushwalk, or they were camping, or they were just parked in their car.
Yeah.
We're never ever expecting to have anything happen to them.
No.
And from everything I've learnt, I believe they know you are there way before you do.
Yes, they know. Right? Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So for us to drive in, it would make sense to just drive in. They're alert. They know we're there. They can smell us. They know we're there. And they want to, and if we were to do a wood knock, hang on, there's something fishy going on here, stay away from them. They're making noise, right? They're trying to imitate us. But if we go in and we've turned all the lights off, we're in the pitch dark, and we are just sitting there dead quiet, to me it's like, what are those people doing? Let's go in and have a look. That's my theory, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think this is what happened. Exactly how Dean Harrison had described it. That we're just dead quiet. We're not talking. We've talked a little bit about the how, and then the dogs went off, and Chad's going, oh, listen to the dogs. And I'm like, yeah. And then a little bit closer than the dogs, there was the odd tree stick break.
Yes.
Kind of thing happening. And I'm starting to think to myself, Chad's like, did you hear that? I'm going, shh, be quiet. Just be quiet, dude. Just be quiet. And then silence.
That's it. And that silence is ridiculous.
Those sticks that we had heard breaking in a distance, it was just a couple of them. And then it went to quietness, right? Yeah. Like something was heading through the bush. Bang, it just went silence. And then, okay, we stood there. Pizzas are still on the bonnet. Torch is still on the bonnet. And we just stood beside the passenger side of the car. And then all of a sudden, it hit me. I started to feel there is something there. I didn't get the feeling of being watched this time. I just had this intuition that something is right there in front of me. And I've grabbed that torch and lit it up out of nowhere, thinking that right in front of me, there's something here. I just know there is something here. So Chad's going, what is it? What is it? And I'm saying, mate, I just feel like there's something here. And then bang, that infrasound, that fear, hit Chad. Hit Chad before it hit me. And Chad, you knocked me out the way in the darkness and was yelling, get the pizzas, get the pizzas.
Don't forget the pizzas, no.
Where he grabbed both pizza boxes off the bottom of the car and threw them in the back seat and was screaming at me to get him out of there.
Yeah.
What I had experienced twice has now hit Chad.
Wow.
And I'm feeling it, but I wasn't feeling it as strong as I had, whether my body had become a bit used to that feeling now, where I wasn't as scared. I was scared. I wanted out there. I wasn't staying.
Yeah.
But I'm having the feeling like in my mind, I know there is something right in front of me and I can't see it with this torch, but I know it's there.
Wow.
And Chad is freaking out. And I'm driving back up Wimborne Road and he's telling me to drive faster and I can't drive any faster. And I'm saying, mate, just calm down, calm down. I put my hand on his leg. It's all right, mate, calm down, calm down. He's shaking in fear. And I'm saying to him, Do you now know what I've told you about this infrasound? That this is what happened at the Pilliga. This is what happened at Wallamumbai.
Yeah.
And it's like I was looking at myself back in 2005.
Well, that shows how far you've come along.
Out.
Yep. On that, I think we're going to have to start winding it up soon. So see where we go.
Yep. No, you're right. We're virtually at the end of this anyway.
Oh, cool.
We get back to my house. I made a coffee and he said, "Can I have a beer?"
Yep.
Yeah, I gave him a beer. I said, "Mate, if you want to stay the night, you're welcome to. If you're like, no, I want to go home, I want to go, or just have this beer." Well, I then opened the laptop and I went straight to that Hazelbrook encounter with Dean Harrison.
Yeah.
As Dean Harrison's telling the story as we're sitting there listening.
Yeah.
And I said, "Listen to what Dean said. The howl, the dogs going off, followed by the rustling in the bush, the dead quiet, and then the fear hitting him." And he's gone, "Oh, my God. That's exactly what happened to us." And I said, "Yes."
Yeah.
With that, he got in the car. And I said, "Mate, just give us a call when you get home, mate. I'm a bit worried about you. You shouldn't really be right. I'll be right. He got home. Now, his partner, he had said to me originally when I first mentioned the Panthers and he was in the Yowies, and he had said to him, "I've never found anybody that believes in him. My girlfriend doesn't believe. My brothers don't believe. They think I'm crazy." Well, he went home to his girlfriend and she saw how shook up he was.
Yeah.
That she questioned what had happened. It was a little while after that Bathurst was on.
Yep.
And I was going to his house. We're going to have a barbecue and we're going to sit down and watch Bathurst together. So I'm meeting his girlfriend for the first time. And she's asked me when I got there about the Yowies and, you know, how Chad was when he came home that night, how freaked out he was. And blah, blah, blah. And then the more I'm talking to her about what's happened to me, started to change her mind a little bit. Next thing you know, she's a believer now because Chad took her to Bathurst one weekend with the little daughter. "Let's go for a road trip up to Bathurst. I want to go to the museum, have a look." He pulled into Hazelbrook on their way home that night, into the exact spot in the dark. And his girlfriend said, "Get me out of here right now." She wouldn't get out of the car. She got out of the car, they lit a cigarette, and she just said, "I want to go." She wanted no part of it.
Yeah.
And Chad said, "I didn't get the same feeling I did, but she did. She just wanted out. She was petrified, and I had to get her out of there." And she's now become a believer herself.
Well, there you go. And and what I think is important about this thing is everybody says, you know, if there was a Yowie out there, more people would see it. But people tend to trust their instinct when they're out and about, and when they get that feeling like, yeah, I want to go in a different direction, they're not going to put two and two together and think it's infrasound or a Yowie. They're just going to know, yeah, I don't want to go in that direction. So it's a bloody good way of steering people in a different direction to keep themselves unseen, you know.
And I've heard that numerous times now, where people have said that there was one couple that said, "My son-in-law, he's a pretty tough-looking guy. He was like cutting the timber out of like doing the logging."
Yeah.
Here in Australia, right? And he had walked around the truck one day and had this absolute fear come over him, exactly as if they were talking about me that day in Pilliga.
Yep.
In broad daylight, had this overwhelming fear come over him that he couldn't get in the truck quick enough, and he couldn't explain why. Mm. This is out in the middle of the bush. And there's so many people that have experienced that. And I don't know if I'm lucky to have experienced it 3 times or not, but I mean, hey, when I seen in 2009 that TV interview that Rex Gilroy had done, it kind of sent me down this rabbit hole where I've went from knowing nothing about these creatures to it just consumes me, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sort of at this point in my life now where my spinal condition's gotten worse. I had to give up work 2 years ago to concentrate on my health. And I'm setting my SUV up to go car camping because, hey, like Wallamumbai, there's a great free camp area up there. Jack Adgery, it's been sightings up at Jack Adgery, just out of Grafton. Great free camping along there. And so as long as I don't have one shake the hell out of my car like happened to poor old Ray Doherty that night, I'm quite keen to go out there at night and just one of these free camps in areas where I know there's been sightings. And I would just love to light a little fire and just sit by the car and just listen, because I know what to listen for.
This was going to be my next question, is how often do you get out there still having a look? Do you do it quite regularly, or is it just every now and then?
I don't. Like after that thing with Chad, that scared him that much at Hazelbrook that night that I kept saying to him, mate, we should go back up and have another look. I really would like to go and research this area down south here. And I couldn't. And I think it just rattled him enough that he was actually just scared to go
where they are. Yeah.
And I kind of, he kept talking about, I'd like to go and have a look at these areas. Well, we never got the opportunity because it wasn't maybe, we talked about it for about 3 or 4 months. And it was like, mate, do you want to, no, I've got something on this weekend. I really think that it stirred him up enough that he didn't want to let me know that he was scared to go out in the bush again.
Yeah. Get that.
But, and then I got quite sick. My health took a really bad turn out in hospital, and then my spinal condition that I have got worse, and I had to give up work. I got access to my super. I moved back to Coffs Harbour, and for the last 2 years I've been sorting my health out, and I'm now at this point where, you know what, there's all these free camps, and I've set up a really good bed in the back of my car, got a fridge and that, and got some camping gear and stuff, stove and things like that.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to go to these free camps when the weather warms up a little bit and just sit there in one of these free camps and just listen. Not go out in the bush experiment, just listen. And because I've done that much research now, I know what to listen for.
Exactly.
And so my theory is if you put yourself in places where you know there's been sightings, you pretty much should nearly be guaranteed to at least be able to hear something, maybe. Not all the time, but you're going to have a better chance than,
Yeah, well, the odds are going to be definitely...
going somewhere where there's been no sighting.
The odds are going to be definitely better in your favour if you're going where the sightings are happening.
I mean, if there's anyone listening to this that's around Coffs Harbour and would like to go, let me know, because I certainly would love to have someone to go with, So
well, it's funny you say that, because my wife and I are actually hitting New South Wales a bit later in the year, and she's always said, I'd like to take you to Coffs Harbour, because she used to live in Coffs Harbour. So you never know. You never know.
Well, we might have to go out for an night investigation then.
Well, I will definitely be in on that. I'll just have to remember to bring, because it's a bit of a family holiday. Obviously, I can't take all my gear, but I can certainly throw a thermal imager in there and a couple of other little bits and pieces. So sounds like a plan.
Well, this is where I need to start thinking of like an audio recorder, just an audio recorder. And if I could get some sort of a thermal device, I think you come to the point where, I don't have a podcast like you do, right? I'm not a researcher as much as, say, Ray Doherty or someone else. I'm just someone looking for my own answers to my own questions.
And there's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, you think about it, a lot of people that are in it just to get the answers for something that they really are passionate about. These are the guys that genuinely get out there and really do the real work, opposed to other people that are trying to capture stuff to put on a YouTube channel or do something like that. You know, you're in it.
Yeah, that's not me. Which is
Well, when we did that investigation, I put it up on YouTube, but it was too very minor.
That's awesome, mate. I love seeing that, because that's what you guys are doing. You've got your podcast, right? So you'd be silly not to put that up. I watched that and I was amazed. Like that, there was something there that you captured.
Yeah, it was only small. And like I said, I will not claim it's a Yowie or anything like that, but there was nobody up there, and there was definitely a head what appeared to be a head poking around the side of that tree. And you could actually see it moving, and that's on.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah. We're going to go back there again soon, because it's a hot spot at the moment over here in that Jarrahdale sort of Serpentine area, because there's a Yowie investigator over here at the moment by the name of Jason Heel, and they're out all the time, almost every weekend in that area. And we actually camped out in that area as well. And it was a very interesting weekend. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
So on that, I think I better let you go. And
all right.
I'd
love good talking to you, Gary. I really appreciate your time listening. And I hope what I've been able to say that other people can take something from that in their own experiences they might not have been able to explain before, about the feelings of fear or dread that they haven't been able to talk about, or, well, that's maybe somebody can find something in that. So
yeah, that's the same for anybody who's listening in, whether it be Yowie type investigations or, paranormal, ghosty type things, UFOs, anything that you've had sightings for, certainly feel free to reach out and come on the show, because that's what we're all about. We're about getting it out there to people and talk to the real people who've had real experiences, opposed to recounting things that you've seen on TV and stuff, because the real deal is where it's at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I hope I haven't talked your ears off too much.
Anyway, thank you very much, and I hope to have you back on the show again soon to hear any more adventures that you have coming up.
I will look forward to it, Gary. Thank you.
Okay, Barry, take it easy, mate. So, everybody, what did you think about the interview with Barry? I think he's a very interesting man, and he has a lot of interesting stories to tell. Now, what didn't transpire in this interview is there were several stories that he told me in the phone call that we had prior to recording that he didn't include in the podcast. So I will be doing a follow-up interview with Barry in the coming weeks, and we will get more of the stories and interesting things that have happened to him in the Pilliga. Now, if anybody is still listening in at this moment, please like and subscribe to the channel, because if you've come this far, obviously you're going to like some of the things that we have to talk about, and there's a lot more coming. So if you're interested in interviews with people who are renowned throughout the paranormal, cryptozoology, and many other interesting traits that are right out there on the edge and the fringe of society, stuff that we all love, please like, subscribe. And we have many stories coming up, many interviews coming up, and we have some lives where we will be going out on location, and we will be taking some of the podcast gear with us. So we will be very interested to see where that goes, and stay with us and enjoy the show. So until then, keep looking up, keep looking out. And if you see anything strange, let us know in the comments below. This is Gary Anderson signing off for now.